Hello there, YouTube. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about GMing, and most of which I'm going to talk about will apply more specifically to Gurps. In the description below, I will put a few links to some other YouTubers word sounds silly when you actually say it. Anyway, put a few links down below to a few other YouTubers that I think have a pretty decent channel, and they have more general GMing advice, but I'm going to talk specifically about an issue that is more specific to Gurps. In fact, I don't want to use it's one of the negative aspects of Gurps, but as far as Gurps is concerned versus other systems that have a world and a backstory and a lore that goes with them, Gurps is in some ways one of the hardest systems to run, especially for a new GM. So D&D or Rifts, or especially like Vampire the Masquerade, you have a wealth of source books that here's the world, here's the politics, and maybe religions, and maps, and excuse me, and any relevant information that has context to how characters and GM are going to interact outside just the rules framework. Whereas Gurps, it's just a rules framework. It doesn't have the game world. You have to create the game world. So as a new GM, it can be kind of daunting. Oh yeah, I'd like to do this, I'd like to do this, and there are all these different options and rule variations. And do you want magic? Do you want psychics? Do you want both? Do you want to come up with a new system? Do you want to include different versions of magic? Do you want to mix high technology and low technology? Do you want to do high-tech, magic, psychics, genetic manipulation, and God knows what else, all in the same environment? And if you don't have a clear concept of what you want to do as a GM, it can quickly fall apart. I had an idea for Gurps when I initially started running it, and I think what I did is I added too many different elements. In my head it worked, and I created little short stories or even little comic books based on some of these characters and stories created in this world, and it seemed like, you know, I could run. I had enough understanding of what I wanted to do with it that it was a fleshed out, in my mind, a world that was gameable. There was a context to it. So what it was this kind of nexus planet where portals open up, and afterwards I played Rifts and kind of found out that wasn't that original idea, but mine was not nearly as hostile, and the portals didn't open up all the time. Like once every 1,000 years a portal would open up. So there'd be humanoid animal races living alongside human beings, and there was also psychics, and the technology level was comparable to a modern technology level. And everybody lived in this very repressive government. Basically, they all lived in the same super mega city that once it kind of got going, people liked their characters. There's a great variety of character concepts, and there's good role-playing for everybody. But story-wise, there were so many different tangents that it could go off on. It kind of broke down because I put too much in it, and I'm kind of making this video to keep other people from having that same mistake. So what advice I would give a new GM is don't add too much in there. If your players are wanting all sorts of different stuff, you can work with them individually or keep it in limited amounts, but it really can get overwhelming, and it might not even seem that overwhelming until you've got it all created and it does get going. So as your first campaign as a GURPS GM, I would probably recommend actually taking source material from something else. Maybe there's a movie or a TV show. I hate to use it because I think it's fucking stupid, but Game of Thrones is a perfect segue for an RPG. I hate it because I find it overly violent and overly dramatic and not personally very good for long-term character development, given that it's most of the people that I know watch it, oh, you never know who's going to die. So it doesn't seem to me like, characters would last long, but I know it's a very popular concept, and it fits a lot of the same trends that most RPGs kind of function with, the medieval fantasy sort of realm. Or you could take not just television or series of books, C.S. Lewis did the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and that's a fantastic fantasy setting with good lore. It's since it's a series instead of just the one-of book. Of course, the Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe is the first one, but 6 or 7 books. It's been so long since I've read them, I don't remember. Shame on me. But you can take books as lore, or you can take lore that is not necessarily in a, well, I guess it would be a book format. If you wanted to, say, do a historical campaign, I like doing historical campaigns, so something like The 300. Yes, that's a movie, but that one scenario, you'd have to come up with more outside that. So maybe you're not going to base it just purely on a book or a movie, but you can get online and use the internet as a great source book. Go to the library and pick up a book on classic Greek arms and armor, or look up maps of Greece in 600 BC or whatever it is. But make sure it's defined and have a source material that's referenceable to everybody. So if you do pick Hellenistic ancient Greece as your setting, make sure you have those books around, or make sure other people are familiar enough with them, and make sure they have access to those resources. If you want to do the book or the movie or the TV series, that is a very easy way for other people to get caught up to speed. Well, I don't know what Game of Thrones is. Well, here's the series, let's watch it. Maybe they might have the same opinion I do of it, but at least they're familiar with the source material, and it doesn't have to be a fantasy setting either. I've always thought the classic 80s movie, The Last Starfighter, where this kid gets the high score on a video game, and it turns out to be a test from this intergalactic space agency or whatever, trying to save the galaxy or whatever. The classic kind of fantasy science fiction trope where you have the kid in the middle of nowhere ends up finding out he's special and saves the galaxy, the universe, or the world, or Tatooine, or whatever it ends up being. It's a pretty stock sort of thought, but it's got a variety of alien races, and it's got a lot of character interaction, but it also does have combat, and as most people know, you're always going to get the people that love combat in any gaming group. I think that's all I've got really to say on this one. I'll probably put out another video on starting from scratch with your own source material, but for new GMs, I would recommend, even if it is just a one-up campaign or a single adventure that maybe ends once the story is completed, which I would suggest the single adventure where you have probably, 6-7 gaming sessions at the most to completion, so everybody learns the rule set. Because if you're a new GM to Gurps, I'm guessing your players are too. But thanks for watching, and see you next time.